So we've just had a panel there on social games and sort of the responsibility of social games, mainly around regulation. One of the points you raised was that many of these companies are self-regulating. You don't promote your marketing materials to minors, etc. If there was regulation of some sort to come into play, like a code of practice across social games, how do you think it would look?
Well, it's a hard question to answer right now because we're just getting together as an industry and learning about each other's businesses and what we do relative to what others do. I think what we're finding in the early discussions is that we generally are operating the business in the same way. We're not spending advertising money to try to get minors to play our games so we can teach them how to gamble, and we have generally the same demographic. It skews slightly female. It's 40 and older, high household income, a lot of disposable income, free time on their hands. So it's not the young and vulnerable that are playing on most of these social casinos. And in fact, all of the members, all of them, they don't share that demographic. So I think because we have similar businesses, we'll find common ground on some things we can do, whether it's a formal code of conduct or not, that we can kind of coalesce around and embrace. As an example, I think all of our terms, if you look at everybody's terms and conditions, say, this game is designed for 18 and older, things like that. So we'll just see. It's kind of early days.
So what you're saying really is, hopefully there won't be a need for this sort of rule because the business is going to work it out by themselves.
Well, yeah. I mean, our fundamental premise is this is not gambling, and so gambling regulators shouldn't regulate it. If a gambling company who's regulated by the UK or Alderney or Isle of Man or somewhere, if that same company through another sister company within their corporate umbrella has a social casino, the regulators should understand what they're doing in that social casino and ensure that they're operating a legitimate business. If they were in the nightclub business, they should do the same thing. They don't get to just regulate the gambling, they get to regulate the company. If the company gets into online pornography, they get to raise their hand and say, hey, we don't like that. We're going to take your license away. So for the companies that aren't regulated because they don't have gambling, the point is, if we can just all behave and run a nice business, then there's not a problem to solve. We think a lot of the chatter out there is a solution in search of a problem that just isn't there.
Sure. And one of the things also, I mean, we mentioned that you're not marketing to minors, etc. But social games like on Facebook etc. do attract generally quite a younger audience. Is there a worry that these players are then going to move into the social casino and then move into the real casino? And in a way, it's sort of, I think the phrase upstairs was used that it could be seen as grooming players to become problem gamblers in a way.
Well, we don't think that problem exists. Gambling content. Video games have been around for a long, long time. Games have been around since ancient history. Gambling games are very, very old and they're very popular. They don't appeal to children. The slot machine is not, it's not something that kids are attracted to. They're designed for older people. I don't know how to specifically answer your question. We're not social games and social casinos are profitable enterprises without grooming somebody to move them to another form of payment.
Sure.
Candy Crush Saga is the most popular game on mobile devices right now. It's making over $1 million a day, and it has nothing to do with gambling. It's just a fun game, and it's being played by adults, and I assume kids like it too. It's a cool game, and it's a big hit. They don't need to groom you to real candy because they're making a lot of money. And social casinos are the same. They're very profitable. They're good businesses. They do a good net income margin, and so we don't need to cross-sell them or upsell them to gambling to have a business. And so we're just not doing it.
Sure.
There's no one that I'm aware that's using their social casino and their player base to push you over. They're using brands, Caesars and Caesars or Zynga and Zynga, but not migrating traffic.
Sure. And how much learning is there for the social casino industry to take from the land-based casino in the way that we were mentioning upstairs that there's many of the same mechanics. Like, you know, you want your players to run out of chips, so they'll get more chips. You know, how much for crossovers? How much is there differentiation?
You mean about the game design?
About the game design, yeah.
You know, there's some similarities. Clearly, social games you're doing something different. You're leveling up. You're playing to get a better status than your friends. And, you know, there's usually a metagame mechanic that includes leveling or building or some kind of other thing that doesn't really exist in the casino industry. But my point in the panel was that the games are generally percentaged in a similar fashion. A slot machine isn't fun if it pays back 60% to the player. Whether they're free chips or paid for chips, it's just not very fun because you're losing so quickly. Same thing if it was 150% payback to win every time on a slot machine, the fun of it kind of goes out. The fun of it is winning and losing and going through the cycle and hitting bonus rounds and picking in bonus rounds and getting great outcomes in some bonus rounds and smaller ones in others. It's the fun of the ride, the up and down. And so social casino games are designed much like real casino games, and I think that's why you see people who make gambling games are making good social games, because it's kind of the same thing.
Sure. And finally, just final question. With the launch of the Social Casino Summit this year, taking part alongside Gigsy, do you think the social casino industry is getting the recognition that it deserves at this point? And do you think events like this help bring focus to it and allow people to meet and take the industry forward?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's in one way not helpful to have, if we're saying social casinos aren't gambling, but yet it's embedded inside of a gambling conference. It's kind of a weird thing. Now, the participants, there's a lot of cross-pollination between social casinos and real money. Mm-hmm. All the major guys have social casinos. So it makes sense why it's here. It'd be nice to have it more part of the video game industry, because it's really what it is. They're video games. And instead of first-person shooters or resource management games like Farmville or strategy games or word games, they're gambling games, and they're more video. It's more aligned with the video game industry than the gambling industry. But I get why there's crossover either way. And so, yeah, it's been very helpful.
Okay, great. Well, thank you very much for your time.
Awesome.
Cheers.